So in this video, we are going to ride and review the Milwaukee 8 Softail Deluxe. Let's check it out. What's going on YouTube? FXDLSBROOKLYN is back in the building. And that's right. In this video, we're going to do something very different from the typical Dyna Bro content. Not doing anything on a Lowrider S or a Street Bob or an FXR. We are taking it way back to something more classic known as the Softail Deluxe. So before we begin this video, we do have to give a major shout out to O'Toole's Harley Davidson out in Wurtsboro for making this video possible. So huge shout out to Mike out in service, and also Dan, one of the owners over at O'Toole's Harley Davidson. Make sure you go check him out. 80 miles outside of New York City. Excellent dealership, and again, thank you for trusting me with this beautiful classic machine. So before we take it out for a ride and put some miles on it, let's just do a little brief overview just so we know what you're getting with this bike and also what some of the add-ons are, because this bike has about 3,000 miles on it, and I did take it out of the dealership, so they did throw a couple things on there that would not come stock. But there's definitely a lot I could tell you about this bike off the bat, and then we will take it out on the road and see what it could do. So first things first, you are seeing a lot of chrome. This is pretty much people who are not into Harley Davidson culture. If you ask them what a Harley Davidson looks like, this is probably going to be an image that they conjure up, right? So this is your classic bread and butter Harley Davidson styling. You got your vivid black with your chrome, and then to make it even more classic, you got your white wall. The cool thing about looking at this bike, which I'm pretty sure it's either a 2019 or a 2020, is this actually doesn't look that much further from the original Softail Deluxe that they put out. So someone seeing this bike at a quick glance is not going to know whether this bike is from 2020 or 2000, right? It's just got, they were able to maintain that classic design, right? But some of the notable features. So first thing, we're working with Reinhardt slip-ons, right? So I knew this bike didn't sound stock. That's because it's not. We got some Reinhardt slip-ons. Sound pretty good. Good bang for the buck, right? Next up, you are, of course, running your Milwaukee 8 engine. I have a lot of feelings and sentiments about this particular engine, but we are running a chromed out Milwaukee 8, right? And this is a 107, not a 114. So this bike, I think, only comes in 107, all right? Next up, you got your floorboards, which I'm definitely currently enjoying, and it looks like we are running a forward control setup. Other things that should pop out is we have these bags on here. They're lined in leather, but these are actually hard bags, pretty hard. They come with a little locking mechanism, and these do not come stock on the bike. So again, that is not stock. Also, we have these menacing looking crash bars. Little point on the end. That is also not something that comes stock with the bike. You know they're not going to give FXDLSBROOKLYN a bike that doesn't have crash bars on it, right? Next notable feature is you have this full front fender, right? Thing just hugs the entire tire, gives it that classic styling, right? Yep, so you got your spokes on both wheels, that classic look, because with this type of bike, you just can't have enough chrome, right? Next up, you have a lot of lighting in the front. This does come stock with your passing lamps, right? These are also all LED, which I thought was really cool. Only downside about these is when you put the bright on, these passing lamps go off. I'm not sure if there's a way to throw them on while the brights are on. It might just be too much for my primitive Dyna Bro brain to comprehend, but it would be nice to have these on while the brights are on. You also have this windshield on here. I do not think this came stock with this bike. Personally, after putting about 50 miles on this bike, that's something I would take off, but that's just me. So again, you do have this windshield pretty high. Does not come stock. Bars, you got a little bit of a pullback on, right? But they're still pretty low, right? And then in terms of what we're working with a gauge, you have pretty much everything on one gauge. So you put this on, this one gauge over here is going to have your speed. It's going to have your RPM, it's going to have your miles, and it's going to have your gas. So a lot of things going on with that one particular gauge, right? It also has the time, right? And then in terms of your seat, you just got this single seat here, no passenger pegs, no passenger seat. This bike coming out the box is made just for you, nobody else. And that's pretty much it. I think those are the main styling points. I'm sure I probably missed something that's important to know that sets this bike aside from the other Softails. But yeah, that's pretty much the main things that popped out at me. I guess the only other things that I would definitely want to mention about this before I forget is this is standard with all the new Softails, but it does have this giant oil cooler over here, which is a feature that I absolutely love about these new bikes. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If I'm missing anything that makes this bike stand apart from the other Softails, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to know. Again, I only got 50 miles on this bike, so I'm still getting to know it myself. So let me know if I'm missing anything. But we've done a lot of talking, we've done a lot of walking around here. Let's take this bike out for a ride, let's see what it could do. Oh wait, actually we did forget something, which is something I always kind of forget to do in videos like this. I'm sure you all want to start up to see what this thing sounds like. Not bad, right? Not bad at all. So the first thing that I think is worth noting is if you're someone that has a hard time flat-footing Harleys, and if you're someone that, you know, feels more comfortable being able to flat-foot a bike, this is probably a bike that you're going to be able to flat-foot with no problem. Because I've said this a million times, y'all know I am on the shorter side of the spectrum, coming in at 5'7", and I could easily flat-foot this bike. So if you're someone, again, that wants something that's a little bit lower, that's more comfortable, you don't like tiptoeing in certain situations, then this is a good option, right? But off the bat, as you can see, with a 107, this bike moves, man. Like, I am not really wanting for power with this bike. And again, I'm someone that's coming off of 3 different performance Harley Davidsons, right? I'm talking a 06 FXDB with a rebuilt SNS 116. It's probably the most powerful bike I've ever ridden in terms of the Harley Davidson lineup. Then you got my main bike, a Lowrider S with a 110 with a 585 cam in it. And then I got a FXR that also is cammed up. So all my engines are at least cammed up and are running pretty hot. And I gotta say, this stock 107 Milwaukee 8 definitely is enough. The only thing I would maybe change if I had this bike with this 107 is I'd probably do a cam just to get a little bit more torque going. But in terms of when I was sitting on the highway with this thing, wasn't really wanting for power, and that's coming from 3 pretty powerful bikes. Now in terms of handling, that's the first thing that kind of jumped out at me. And this is more a comment on probably the modern Softail lineup in general, not necessarily this specific bike. But these Softails, man, handle beautifully out the box, you know? And it's like us Dyna bro dudes and ladies, like you gotta put in some money to make a Dyna handle like this bike handles out of the box. So the front suspension as well as the monoshock rear suspension handles wonderfully. And in terms of the highway miles, this thing just eats miles. You know, it's basically the magic carpet feeling. You're gliding along on this thing because the suspension is so dialed in off the bat. So yeah, I'm definitely a huge fan of the handling on this bike, which again extends to the modern Softail lineup. The thing that I find cool about this bike is I'm going to call this bike a modern classic, right? So like I said before, a chromed out vivid black Softail is again what most people who aren't into Harley Davidson culture are gonna think about when you say Harley Davidson. It's that classic bread and butter Harley Davidson, right? It still looks like a 2000 Softail Deluxe, right? But the cool thing is you have all these modern components that just allows this bike to straight up rip, right? You have the modern suspension, you have the modern engine, which definitely contributes to the smoothness of this ride, right? You have other modern aspects to this bike, like it has ABS. I'm a huge fan of ABS, so the fact that this bike comes stock with that, love that. So yeah, it's definitely a modern classic. And I think in terms of this bike, you know, coming in at the price point of $18K, there's a lot that you're getting. If you're someone that, again, you're not going after some cool guy Dyna bro look, you know, you're looking for a more classic Harley Davidson look, this is a good option to get that classic styling, that classic look, without sacrificing performance. Because this bike has been a blast just ripping around in back roads like the one I'm on now. And it also was a lot of fun to hit the highway with. What's up, baby deer? Look at the little baby. So yeah, as you can see, I am absolutely very much enjoying myself on this bike. You know, when I get on something that is not a club style Dyna or FXR, it's always very novel to me. So this bike is a lot of fun just to switch things up from what I'm on 99% of the time. And you know, I definitely have a special connection with these classic Softail models because, you know, when I was a kid, after he put thousands of miles on the family Sportster, my dad went up to a 2009 Softail Heritage. So I remember, you know, some of my earliest memories riding when my dad still had his Heritage, and he used to rip on that bike, absolutely rip on that bike. And I could see why. Like, the bike is built to rip. It's not at all feeling like a bagger. It's probably feeling closer to the nimbleness of a Dyna, right? So you could really rip on these. You could really throw them around a turn, and they feel really light and nimble. Now, this bike in particular, they did throw bags on this bike, which I think is a great addition, because if you wanted to, you could 100% take this bike cross country. There's no reason why you can't do it. You know, just throw some bags on, throw either a rack or a sissy bar on, and you're all set to put in some serious miles on this bike. It will definitely do it, and it'll definitely do it having you feel comfortable. So yeah, I think if you're someone that's just after that modern classic styling, if you want to roll up to the bike night chromed out with something that looks classic but will still have the performance to it, this is a great option. Now, the sad thing about making this video is a lot of us do know that in 2021 this bike was discontinued along with the Breakout, which actually probably makes a little bit of sense because honestly, when you look at the face of it, this bike is not that much different from, say, a Fat Boy, a Slim, or a Heritage. So I feel like if you were really married to this bike, you could pretty much, and again, this is just making an assumption, I haven't ridden those bikes, but I feel like you would pretty much get a similar experience with those bikes as you would get with this one. Another thing I'm really enjoying about this bike, and again, this is someone who is a mid-control guy until death. Everything I run has mid-controls on it. But that being said, when I do get to sit on something that has forward controls and floorboards, I very quickly get used to it, and I'm like, yeah, I can see why people like this. So yeah, I generally rock mid controls on all my bikes, but man, does this feel good. Especially the floorboards, most notably. I definitely think the floorboards on this bike was the way to go. But yeah, if you are someone that looks at this bike and you're like, yeah, that's my dream bike, you know, I've always wanted a Softail Deluxe or whatever, the good news is as you're watching this video now, I do believe that Harley still will offer this bike new as the 2020 version. So again, I think you could still buy it new as a 2020, you know? How long that will be possible for, I don't know. But for now, when you go on the website, they are still offering it new. And again, it's coming in at $18K. If I had this bike, changes I would make right off the bat would definitely be the bars. You've all heard me express frustrations with stock Harley bars before, most notably the Road Glide. You know, it's just I don't think this is as bad as the Road Glide, because with the Road Glide, you're sitting up higher. So it's putting more pressure on your wrists that are sinking lower. Man, look at this hazard. Serious hazard. But yeah, so the Road Glide, you sit up higher, so it's putting more pressure on your wrists. The saving grace about this is you could comfortably get through at least 200 miles on these bars, because you are sitting quite a great deal lower than I feel like you're going to be sitting on a lot of the bagger platforms. So your wrists aren't going to experience that same fatigue as quickly. But even after doing, you know, about 40 minutes on this bike, I definitely needed to shake out my wrists a couple times, just because, you know, I'm definitely not used to having my riding position have my hands so low as they are with this bike. So I would definitely change out the bars. As for these Reinhardt slip-ons, man, that's like a pretty good option in terms of bang for the buck. If you're picking up one of these from the showroom and you don't want to rock a stock exhaust, why not? But yeah, that's it. Like I said in the thumbnail, this bike is 100% an American classic. This bike is a true icon, and it's a little sad that they discontinued it. I get it, you know, the pandemic hit and the bikes aren't selling because there's so many similar options. I totally understand. But I think this is probably a bike that's going to go down as a classic, especially as more years go by that they don't make it. It's going to slowly become a special bike for you to see. Yeah, man, performance on this thing, I'm happy with it, man. And I guess to conclude, you know, back in 2017, in terms of everyone who was into their Dynas, that was a year of a lot of outrage that they killed off the Dyna line for the Softail line with the Milwaukee 8 and the monoshock. But days like today, when I'm on a bike like this and I'm enjoying the ride so much and I'm feeling, you know, how good the performance is, it gives me hope for the Softail line in general. And a lot of times when people do ask me, like, hey, should I buy a new Lowrider S for a crazy amount of money? My response is usually no, don't do that. Buy a 2021 Lowrider S, because it's probably going to perform better out the box. Bike is going to rip. And when I ride a bike like this and I have such a good time on it, it validates what I feel like I'm telling people. And again, it's just like my buddy Romano recently traded in his FXDLS for a 2021 Lowrider S, and I think that was the right call. You know, you're getting a bike that's going to perform pretty wonderfully out the box. Whereas with all of our Dynas and FXRs, we got to do work to make that happen. you know? But that's really all I got for this one. Again, shout out to O'Toole's Harley Davidson for trusting me with this beautiful bike. If there's anything I'm missing or didn't mention, by all means, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my ride until I have to bring this bike back and pick up my lowrider, which I think they're going to be able to get done in one day, which would be quite amazing because I am leaving for a cross-country trip in 2 days, so the sooner we get that back, the better. But as always, stay safe out there, stay low. It does not matter what you ride, it just matters that you ride. Listen to the bad brands, maintain a positive mental attitude, and on that, FXDLSBROOKLYN is out.